I'm Daphne, and welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about From. So, I have been watching From. I started in November, probably 2025. And I really didn't understand. Like, when I looked at the pictures, I wasn't sure what From was about. And I was like, well, people are saying it's good, so I'm just going to watch it. And it's good. Okay, it's I like sci-fi and thrillers and stuff like that. So for me, I was like, yeah, this is honestly it's scary. Okay, it's scary. And recently, because we are in season 4, the what is it? The series finale just came out, and right before the series finale came out, there was a lot of conversation. I was seeing so much conversation and chatter about From, and the biggest thing that I was seeing was that people were a lot of people are like, oh, I don't understand what's going on. And that's on you, because there's plenty of information and resources out there, theory videos to figure it out. So to me, I was like, that's on them. But what really struck me and interested me was that I saw a lot of people that were just very much against what the townspeople were doing, the choices they were making, and really most people were just not understanding, like, kind of what the thought process they had going on. And I see so many posts, and I just be like, I get where you're coming from, but I've been working in and around organizations that are community focused and community centered for about 3 to 4 years now. And to me, when I watched From, I was watching and I was like, y'all are making terrible decisions. But also in my work of working with people who are looking to organize and build community, I saw a lot of the same challenges. And when I hear a lot of people online just kind of talking about, like, why are they doing what they're doing, it's like, to me, it's very obvious, and it jumped out at me. So between when I started watching From and to where we are right now in season 4, around, like, in between this time, I had a lot of different experiences and challenges of my own in and around community building. So once I saw the question of why people are doing what they're doing, I was like, wow, this is a question around community building that I don't think a lot of people are recognizing. And also, I would say, in my perspective, that From sheds light on a lot of very common issues that people run into when they get into community organizing. So, my thoughts were, one, community building is super important in our current times, and it's always been super important. But, a lot of people think that community building is just going to be intuitive. It's just going to be, oh, well, why wouldn't people support each other? Why wouldn't people work together to make good decisions? But it's not always that simple. I think what we often would look at as intuitive is actually something that has been built over centuries. So, at this point in our society's history, community has shifted from what most people commonly thought of it as a couple centuries ago. People are more fragmented. People are, of course, creating their own communities, but that just because you are in a community does not mean you're not going to have or experience problems in that community. And the good thing about community is that there are a lot of perspectives and a lot of people that are willing to listen and willing to work together to find a commonality or common solutions. So, in my work, it just made so much sense to make this video because, when I think about community, I think a lot of times we think of nonprofit organizations, or we think of, our families, our friends, but it's also our social groups. It's the people you go shopping with in the grocery store down the aisles every day. So, I think once we look at broadening how we see ourselves in the community and we see others in the community, I think that is really the shift that will help a lot of people to embrace more community building perspectives, and then also take that on as an individual on how they can individually contribute to better communities that are successful, are thriving. So I figured out that there are 3 main points and 3 I guess what I'm saying is I see that there's three parallels between, you know, community building and what the people are doing in from. And it's common issues that I feel like most people don't think would be a huge issue in community building, but you know, community is also needing to be maintained. So, you know, of course, people come together and under a shared interest, and it's like, yeah, we're a community, but there's also a maintenance to having community that a lot of people may not intrinsically think to themselves, oh, I have to also uphold certain aspects and certain structures in this community that we are part of. We're constantly going to be building it up. So with that said, I would like to start. So number one, what really stuck out to me about From is that From is about choices. It's about choices overall, and it is about that these people are stuck in a cycle that, you know, clearly they're not doing that great at. You know what I mean? You know, in this season, in this iteration of the game, they're doing a lot better. Okay, they're doing a lot better, but it's still not getting them home, and you know that's really the problem. So I would say when people think about the choices that the townsfolk in From are making, I think we also need to think of ourselves as an outside perspective. We are the audience. So of course, when we're looking at what a group of people in the From town should be doing, of course, in our minds, it's so easy to see all the problems. It's so easy to see what is the better option. But you know, I like to think of when I'm making those decisions. Well, yeah, when I'm making those decisions about, like, do I agree with people in From, or do I think they're making the wrong decision? I always remember that, like, they can't see what we can see. So everything that looks easy to us is not an easy decision for them. And also, them making choices is very difficult given the situation that they're in. So, you know, again, I never thought I would just be like defending the people from. Okay, I never thought I would be defending them, but it's like, wow, look at them struggling day after day. And you know, in the time that I have been working over the last like 3-4 years in community building, the last year and a half has definitely highlighted challenges to me that I was aware of, but I didn't quite understand, you know, the necessity to work on fixing them. So one big thing that I noticed in my perspective of community building and choices is that number one, we don't live in From. We do not live in From. And number one, that's the big. I think that's number one. What we all need to be like. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I don't hear that yipping and yapping, screaming, and yeah. I'm glad I don't have to be there for all of that, right? And I think in recognizing that we actually do not live in From and we are in the real world, to me, that highlights, you know, if anything, I don't have to be over there. So that to me highlighted that within our choices, we have a decision to make about number one, you know, what interests or organizations we support. That's the biggest thing. We also have the choice in how we support them. Like, you know, some people may volunteer, some people, I don't know, they may be doing Meals on Wheels, they may do volunteer delivery, but there's a lot of different ways and choices that we have in how we are supporting those organizations or those causes that, you know, we want to see be successful. And then lastly, I would also say the biggest thing is, you know, with community building, you always have a choice in who you are supporting. So, you know, it's not to say that we shouldn't support everyone in a general way, but in our choices, we can choose if we want to, what we want to choose, what we want to support. We can choose how we want to support it, and then also we can support. We can choose how we can choose who we are supporting. And in that, we have a lot of choice. And sometimes we don't really recognize that we have so much choice until, you know, honestly, for me, it was seeing From and seeing they ain't got a lot of choices. They got a lot of choices, but they ain't got the choice that they want that gets them home. Like, that is very immediate and evident. So, you know, that is what I'm taking from is that when we're thinking about community building, we're also thinking about the choices that we make. And of course, what I'll also say that the choices that the people in front are making says about how we can make choices in community building is we're not always going to make the perfect choice. We're not always going to make the best choice, but for the most part, people do their best to make the best decision that they can with what information they have, which is what the people in front are constantly doing. And is it successful? Who can say? Who can be sure? Is really how I think about it. So with community building, I would say one of the main things that you have to ask yourself is what kind of choices do you even have, and which choices have you been needing to make, or have felt unwilling to make because it would change the dynamic of perceived harmony. So just consider that. Now, the second thing is what people talk about. I see them talk about this issue all the time, just like all the time. And again, I get it. I'm watching the show. You know what I mean? So I see them, and I'm just like, I agree, but also at the same time, let's think about the nuance of this whole situation. So the second challenge that I see in the people from that parallels challenging and community building would be the communication. Okay, communication is always, for me, in my perspective, I think everything begins and ends with conversation and communication. Be it you having a conversation, body language, tone. There's a lot of communication that's always coming at you, and we're always perceiving and interpreting. And it's really up to us to understand how we can use that information to improve or support our situations. So when I think about the people in from and their communication issues, what I see is people with complex trauma. That's honestly the biggest thing that always jumps out for me in the people at from. You would think that, oh, they should be having, debriefing sessions. They should be, having a daily roundup of all the things that people are talking about, all the things that, people are experiencing in the day, which makes a lot of sense. But again, we on the outside, okay? We're not trapped. We're not trapped. So it may not seem, it definitely seems easier for us to get that done because we're on the outside. But when I'm talking about the complex trauma that these people are dealing with, number one, let's keep in mind they have their own perceived personal trauma before they even get to from. Okay, so that's number one. We already got that kind of trauma. We don't know what they've been through. We don't know what frustrates them or stops them from having conversations with their families in this show. And let's not forget, this is a show. But they have their personal trauma. Then they have the trauma that they experienced the first day that they entered the town. And then also, I would say something that people aren't recognizing even in them having a trauma is, they're also experiencing on their first day the trauma of other people or the other towns people in from, they're experiencing their trauma. Because I feel like the people that are in the town, whenever somebody new comes in town, I think that for a lot of people, they have to relive their situation on that day. So the type of responsiveness that these people are working towards giving to every person that newly enters the town, it's a mix of, support, nurturing, let's help this person, but then it also is tinged with notes of despair, confusion, secrecy, because nobody tells you straight up you're not going home. Nobody tells you straight up you're not going home. So that's just what it is. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind. So we already got personal first day. The townspeople having trauma that they're somewhat projecting on them. Then also, because we're talking about this from is a cyclical cycle, they got generational trauma. Okay, some of them. I don't know if it's everybody, but some of them have generational trauma in this town. Okay, so that's also, we already got, what is that, 4 different traumas. And then also keep in mind that they're constantly having some type of chaos. Okay, so they're constantly in chaos. Yeah, they're constantly in chaos. I mean, it's an everyday thing. Well, this is what I say. I won't say it's an everyday thing. It's at least a weekly thing because we watch it. You know what I mean? But it's at least a weekly thing, and there is a perpetual feeling of they don't know if something traumatic is going to happen to them, something is going to happen around them, or something is going to happen in their generalized environment. Okay, so they're dealing with that trauma. And then, not to mention that they are in a forced community. This is not a group of people that, are like, you know what? Let's go to From and let's try to get out. Let's make an escape room. No, that's not what's going on here. You know what I mean? These people all arrive as strangers, seemingly, right? They arrive as strangers. They don't know each other. So they're pretty much forced to bond with people that are going through trauma. They themselves are going through trauma. There's nobody that is a therapist that we know of. Ain't no psychologist around. So, there's not even from just watching the show, it doesn't look like there's any resources that these people can, look to. They don't, I mean, as far as I know, they ain't even doing breathing exercises. You know what I mean? Like, they ain't got nothing. So, I will also keep that in mind that you're not necessarily telling the lady in the grocery store your dreams. You feel me? Like, you're not. I mean, sometimes we are. Okay, I have, but I don't suspect that that's necessarily what everybody is excited to do or encouraging themselves to do, right? So when I think about community building, I also think about that you don't know these people that you're working with a lot of times in collaborations. Y'all just come together under a shared idea, a shared interest, shared values, and they too can have complex trauma. It could be somebody who, is having family problems, is lost their job, or if they didn't even lose their job isn't paying them enough. They may not know what they're going to eat at night. You may be working alongside them. Their children are having problems. You never know what's going on in these people's lives, right? So with that being said, the thing that I look to in community building is that I recognize that I myself have complex trauma that I'm probably working through. Other people have complex trauma that they're also working through. And even though that can be a hindrance in some ways, I always recognize that, if I want to progress in the work and building the community with myself and the people that I'm working with, I'm going to have to recognize that in some ways I'm going to have to be vulnerable. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to tell them everything all the time, but if it's something that is affecting my productivity, my effectiveness, or how I am registering in the day to day, it will be good that I could share that with people that I'm collaborating with, that I'm co-creating with. And I also feel like when we're talking about communication, in my perspective, a lot of times, well, I won't say a lot of times, but I recognize that there's been a slight shift in how people think about being friends and, being present for other people. And sometimes there is kind of the notion that it's not my problem, but also when we're in community, if somebody's going through something, you want to communicate with them before they fall off the turnip truck. You know what I mean? Like, you want to intervene before it even becomes a problem. So, what I like to remember is that I am actively choosing to be in community with these people. I am actively choosing that. I know I may be irritated in some ways. I may be frustrated with their behavior some ways. But also at the same time, I recognize I have no clue what the extent of their lived experiences really look like. So for me to, judge them harshly on something that may have been easy for me to communicate, I try my best not to judge in that way, because there will definitely come a time that I don't know how to express myself, or I don't know how to explain what I'm going through in a timely manner. It just is right. It just is like that. What it is. People are going to be processing at different speeds. So I'm just comfortable with the fact that being in community also is going to mean that I will be inconvenience with other people's behavior from time to time. Just like, if I have a family member that is calling me last minute to do something, like, yeah, I don't really want to do it necessarily, but also I want this person to have more wellness. I want them to feel emotionally supported. I want them to know that they're physically supported, and I'll do what I can to support them when I can and it makes sense. Just like, say for instance, I guess a very common experience is when you're a youth. Okay, you're a youth and you got a project that you ain't been working on, and it's due tomorrow and it needs supplies and it's a whole project, and then you go and tell your parent at like 6 o'clock at night when they got off work, and you're expecting all of these things to just come together to make this project. And oftentimes, a sibling's gonna have to help you with that, a parent's gonna have to help you with that. I've had that situation so many times, but the reason why the people in my life stood and helped me or supported me is because they want me to be successful and they want me to thrive. And that is also something with community, is we thrive together. So also keep that in mind when it is an inconvenience. So, that's all I'm saying. I think about the people in my community when I'm thinking about the communication, even if it's something that I'm not excited to communicate about. I think about, what is going to be the outcome. The outcome is going to bring some clarity, and clarity is what's needed in the situation anyway. So, I think about it as I'm supporting their wellness, their emotional well-being, helping them to be more emotionally sound in some senses. And communication is always going to be the bridge for that. And also, something that I forgot to mention is, with communication and the people and from, the goal of when you're figuring out communication with people and doing what you can to build that community through communication, I think it's always good to think about, what is the goal in my communication. People should have goals in their communication. So the people at from, they should be thinking, okay, well, like, our communication plan is that, let's say we communicate every day at, I don't know, let's say not sunset, because that, they might be outside in the street. They can be outside in the street. But let's say if all the people in their respective homes and places that they're staying, after sundown, debriefed with each other, and then when the sun comes up, there is a designated person that can, come together with other people in like a small planning group or like a small strategy group. And the information would flow a lot better, and people would feel a lot more seen, and people would feel a lot more welcome to see that the conversations they're having actually matter, and they actually go somewhere, and they actually are being, what is it, utilized. Let's just say utilized. So that's also something that I think it would really benefit the people from, and when we think about community building with other people in organizations, friend groups, and things like that. When I call my friend, like if I call my friend right now, I might send her a text earlier that I want to talk about A, B, C, and D, and she's already ready. She already knows what we're talking about. So for that, it takes some stress off of what our conversation is going to be about. And of course, we can talk about other things, but girl, we're going to talk about this first. That's how I think about it. So I would say some questions we can think about with community building that we are seeing in from is, what vulnerable conversations are we avoiding that could change everything? And also, what are our communication goals? So lastly, the last thing is one of the most important things, if not the most. Okay, like, yes, communication, yes, choices, but I mean, and when we think about choices, I don't remember where I heard it from, but either way, like, when you make a choice, you're gonna have to make a choice either way. You're gonna have to pay in some way to do anything. Like, if you want to do good in school, you are going to pay in your time and your studying. Those are some things that, I think sometimes we get a little scared about how many choices we have and what choices mean and how they're going to affect us. But either way, not making a choice is making a choice. Okay. Anyway, so the last thing I would say that is honestly the most important is safety. Okay. Nobody is safe in this town. Nobody is safe in this town. These people are in constant fight or flight. The communication could be better. The choices could be better if these people had like a safe place to land with their thoughts. Because let's keep in mind, the people aren't safe with each other. They're not even safe within themselves, like in their dreams, in their mental space. Like, it's really sad when you really think about it. They have no reprieve even within themselves. So, I would just say that I feel like there's a lot of expectation about what these people can do, but if you were in a situation where you're constantly stressed, constantly in fight or flight, let's say the guy that got attacked by them dolls, right? He got attacked by them dolls, and they was like, "Oh yeah, what are we gonna do? We got to do something with them." Before they could even tell people in the town, okay, they go upstairs. Donna has a heart attack, and then Donna's out. Donna's out for a while, and everybody's stressed because Donna's a key player. Okay, we love Donna, but anyway, but that's what I'm saying. Like, they don't have the time to even figure out what are safe decisions. So because their environment isn't safe, the people around them aren't safe, people are wheeling and dealing behind the scenes. Okay, we're talking about you, Clara, and just so we're clear, some of us was on to you, Clara, okay? Because you was in scenes, you was talking, and it's like, girl, I mean, I want to hear the townspeople from time to time, but they be reminding me of like the people in SpongeBob, like the fish in SpongeBob that we talking. But they got a whole life. They got a whole life now. But anyway, anywho, what I'm saying is that when I also think in community building, what's super important is for people to have a safe space. It's very important for people to have a safe space to share their ideas, to share their concerns. And, there also needs to be a safe space that if there is conflict, we can address it without us getting in a fight or without us trying to kick people out. So what I see from a community building perspective is that when we're thinking about building better communities that can thrive and are supportive, we also need to figure out what is important for people to feel safe. What is important for people to feel that belonging? Because even if people have all these great ideas, even if they have all of these messages like Jade, like Mari, who else? They got ideas. That's what I'm saying. They got ideas. But even if we have all of those great ideas and all of that great information, if we don't feel safe to share it, I don't want to say it's null and void, but people aren't going to share it. Even people, I've even worked with people that are very, outgoing, but in group settings, they're not trying to rock the boat. So the question in community building becomes, how can we make sure these people are safe? How can we build a space or a container so that people are confident in the power of their voice and aren't going to be judged or persecuted for any wild ideas that they may have, or any super conservative ideas that they may have? Because I would say also, when you think about community building, especially in nonprofit organizations, there's a lot of different theories on how we can work together, and all of them aren't kumbaya. Okay, they're not all kumbaya. But what I think about it is, we're all a symphony playing a song. Everybody has a different role. Everybody has a different instrument. But as long as we come together and the song sounds good, then we're doing a great job. So I guess what I'm saying ultimately is, when we're thinking about safety in the group that, we are trying to build with, or the person that we're trying to build with, you have to, number one, ask yourself, are you a safe space? I think a lot of times we think to ourselves like, yeah, I'm easygoing. Yeah, I'm open-minded. But, really ask yourself, am I easygoing, or am I just going with the flow because I don't want to create conflict? And that's what it is sometimes. So number one, we need to be asking ourselves, are we a safe space? Like, for real. Also, are we, like, what can we do, or what are we contributing to, or what can we bring to make safe space or a safe environment for the people that we want to feel comfortable with and around? I think there are specific options to creating safety. Some of those look like, what is it called? Coming up with different agreements. Like, say, for instance, y'all can be in a group and y'all can come up with your own agreements on how you want to conduct your organization or how you want to have conversation. One that I'm very familiar with is it's okay to speak in rough draft, or perfection is the enemy of good. Because, I mean, you're not always going to have the words that make immediate sense all the time. But that doesn't mean that your idea is bad. It doesn't mean that your idea isn't worth fleshing out in some way. So I would really think about, especially in my perspective, I think specifically in friend groups and families is where we should consider these questions the most, because I feel like if we can work with our families and communicate better and create better safety, and have that space to have those choices and not be persecuted for even having ideas, I think that can help a lot of people to strengthen that advocacy, that personal advocacy muscle. And also that will, like, in strengthening that muscle, you can do it other places. If you can do it with the people you grew up with and y'all are good, you can probably do it with other people outside of your community as well. So, my thing is domestic policy, and then we can get to foreign policy. We need to make sure the people over here are like, okay, that's my theory of where we start doing the work. So that was the 3 parallels that I've seen in the challenges in from and community building, and I hope this was helpful. I hope this was helpful. Also, I would just say, when you're considering community building, also keep in mind that, like, of course you want to build community with other people, but you too are a person and a part of one or many communities. So also think about what makes you safe, what gives you the freedom to feel like you have more choices. What is your communication style? And how is that going? Maybe your communication style, it needs to shift a little bit, or maybe you just need to speak up, or maybe you need to speak less. But hey, I would say, when I think about it, I didn't just come up with all of these, well, not all of these, but these 3 types of issues overnight. I've been working in this spectrum for about 4 years, but I've also had work in other like fields as well. So this has been something that has been brewing. It's something that took time. It's something that took a lot of having challenges and conflicts with other people to really recognize. But also, I want to highlight that I would never have gotten to this level of understanding the gravity of these 3 things without being in community, without the people that give me other options on how I can address situations, how I can address other people, how I can look at my communication style, what I can change, what I can improve. And it's always going to be a work in progress. We're always going to be evolving, but my thing is, as long as you're willing to try, I feel like we're already doing better, because you're at least engaged enough to want to see something change. So that's it for me. I would say, and I mean, this is a side note, but it's not really a side note. It's a from thing. But I seen the season finale, and I was just kind of like, as I suspected, it wasn't going to be like, oh my goodness. Because, I mean, this is the thing. MGM, they trying to get them dollars, okay? Because I got MGM, and I don't know what other shows they got this popping like from. So I already knew that they got a 5th season. It's not going to be like so crazy. The show's already crazy enough. So anyway, I will leave you with that. And other than that, I will catch y'all later. Bye.